Hello to our wonderful Global Ballet Teachers community, and welcome to the Backstage at the Ballet series. We're so thrilled to have you here for this chat live or watching the recording. My name is Cecilia Iliesiu, and I am the director of Global Ballet Teachers, as well as a soloist dancer with Pacific Northwest Ballet here in Seattle, Washington in the US. And many of you may already know, but Global Ballet Teachers aims to create free community-led courses, classes, and resources to educate and empower ballet teachers around the world. And we are doing just that with this series by talking about different ballet productions with additional resources that you can share with your students to learn more about them. So you can watch this chat with your students and share it with them. We've also added a choreography element. So for this series, for Swan Lake, we've included the 4 Little Swans dance that you can learn, and then some additional resources there. And then Leora makes a PDF document about all the different details for this production. And that'll all be on Google Classrooms that I'll link below on this chat and will be available if you sign up for emails. But as I said, in this episode, we'll be featuring the production of Swan Lake, in particular, the one by Kent Stoll that we do at this production. I'm sure Leora will dig into this later. There are many versions of Swan Lake, but this one is choreographed by the former director of this company. And we performed 5 shows, Destiny, this weekend?
Yes.
Five shows this weekend. And then we have, I believe, 6 next weekend. So it is a marathon. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But before I pass it on to Leora and our wonderful guest, Destiny, know that this conversation is for all of you teachers that are here live. So if you have any questions, please unmute or type in the chat. I'll be managing that while the conversation is going on. So without further ado, Leora, I'll pass it on to you for an intro, and then we'll pass it on to Destiny and then get on going.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back here with another Backstage at the Ballet chat. I'm coming to you from Toronto, Canada. Most recently, I've been doing ballet appreciation programs under the title of Ballet, Let's Talk About It. That's me. Over to Destiny.
Hi, my name is Destiny Wimpye, and I am in the professional division at Pacific Northwest Ballet. And yeah.
Maybe before we get going, what can you tell our audience a little bit more about the professional division program? Like, what is it? How did you get into it, and kind of what the process is?
Yeah, so the professional division program is kind of like we kind of make up the core to ballet of like Pacific Northwest Ballet. I got into the program through the summer course. Now I think they do video auditions, so you can audition like that way and not just have to go to the summer course. But I got in through the Zoom weird year of summer coursing. So I was like in my living room doing Zoom, and yeah, I got accepted into the PD program. That's what we call it. And a bunch of us from everywhere come and move out to Seattle so we can train here with these amazing teachers and be with these such inspiring dancers. And yeah, we get to perform Nutcracker and just different ballets like Swan Lake with the company, just depending on how many of us they need. And yeah, it's a really crazy and fun experience for us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna fill in a little bit of Destiny's day. It's crazy. So they start is it 8:30 in the morning?
Yes.
And then they have technique class, and then you should actually tell your schedule. And I know it vaguely, but like, what's a typical day for you?
Yeah, so 8:30 a.m. class. Depending on like what ballet we're rehearsing, we might end at like 6. But yeah, if we're not doing a ballet, I guess it would be like 8:30 to like 4, maybe 8:30. Yeah, 8:30 to 4. We'd have technique class, and then maybe variations or technique modern.
Like modern, yeah.
Yeah, different classes like that. So that's kind of the day.
Yeah, and I'm going to toot Destiny's horn right now because she has so many things going on. Not only is she training, she's also performing with the company, which is a huge deal. And then they're also preparing for a next step program, which is, we can talk about that later. But it's just a whole other production that the professional division students do on their own. And then you just finished your own production of Beauty and the Beast, which was just the school that they were the principals and she was Belle in Beauty and the Beast. So like pretty big deal. And then end of the year performance. So like 5 different things going on. Like they basically have more than the company right now. So just letting you know. Destiny is amazing. Let's get into our conversation. Leora, take it away.
Thank you. But you dangled one in front of me and I can't resist. So I'd like to put that into context in terms of what we've been talking about in the series. So for example, in the Nutcracker and also in this production of Swan Lake, you will notice, or you will have noticed, that there are children performing, and those children are also drawn from the professional training programs that are associated with the ballet company. So Destiny and the this end range of the program that we were just hearing about is part of the continuum of training to be a professional dancer. And there are different specialties that you have to learn and master and take on board in order to be that full-fledged whole dancer that can offer themselves to be a company member. So in our very specific case of Swan Lake, we have a few PDF resources for you, and they'll be available through the Google Classroom. I'll bring the first one on just to present the case before us, and then I'll move on to the second. So here we are, and oh, that worked. Beautiful. So I will be very cautious, as I've tried to be when I talk about a very revered and long-lasting ballet in the repertoire. I had similar, I was similarly cautious when we were talking about Nutcracker, dating back to more or less the same era of the end of the 19th century. And I'll do the same in introducing Swan Lake at the moment. So thanks to Cecilia and Pacific Northwest Ballet, Global Ballet Teachers will have access to watch PNB's performance of Swan Lake, choreographed by Ken Stoll, who is one of the 2 co-founders of the company. And like with everything else, there is context. There is the original and the claims of different reincarnations of the original, and to what extent are they faithful to that original, or do they deviate, etc. The basic information about this particular production of Swan Lake is on this first PDF, with references to information that Pacific Northwest Ballet provides. And moving very carefully into the plot itself, I'll just switch over to the other document that I hope you will all find interesting enough to go into the different, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get you back so that I can also see all of you. There you are. Thank you. Yes, so I hope that the different links will be of interest. I had to make some very brutal choices of what to put in and what to leave out. Where I could, I was able to track down a full version of a ballet production for y'all to see. Where I wasn't, I hope that there is at least the name of the choreographer, add Swan Lake, and you will be able to get results for your own added research online. So we start out with the year 1877, when Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky was commissioned to write his first ever ballet score on a particular idea and theme and story that we know today as Swan Lake. The music continues to be the one which we refer to as the music for Swan Lake. In some instances, there are some deviations, and I'll see if I can point those out as we go along. As for choreography, oddly enough, on the pages of history, the original production by Julius Reisinger in Moscow in 1877 was not that great of a hit. It wasn't a failure by any means, but okay. I mean, I hope that for those who are seeing you for the first time, I take a few liberties with some sense of humor, etc. To those who've already seen me in the past, I hope you will be forgiving where I go off a little bit on my own little tangents. Fast forward to 1895 and the choreography of Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov in St. Petersburg. That would be the version that we all refer to today as the original, and whoever tries to maintain and be faithful to that original will make a point of saying after Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov, but there may have been several other choreographers over the years who had already made changes, and it's very hard to tell and to know, because for those moments in history before photography and before film, there was word of mouth, there was live transmission of steps and ideas by dancers from one generation to the next, and there was some form of dance notation. And these have all been consulted in one way or another over the years, both by those who are trying to do things and recreate and reconstruct, like an example of Alexei Ratmansky, and those who want to deviate and have their own original interpretation. The pictures that we have in front of us at the moment are from 1895. And I know that for myself, when I discovered these treasures from the past, I thought, oh, wow, they look different. They don't quite look like dancers look today, and the costumes don't quite look like I would expect today. And to me, that's part of the beauty of how ballet, of learning and seeing how ballet has evolved over time. I tend to be very visual, so I'm a sucker for photos and videos. So moving right along, and the little disclaimer that I kept repeating was fast forward to another instance and moment in time that we do have well documented and we can go back to see. So two famous versions, one in St. Petersburg and one from Moscow, of the Bolshoi and the Kirov at the time, of Swan Lake, already in the 20th century. If you will look into the Wikipedia link or the Marius Petipa Society link, then you will see all the intricacies of different versions. And this duet was changed, and this little piece of music was introduced, and that one was taken out, and many years later was, etc., etc. Ballet is complicated. That seems to be the only conclusion that I keep arriving at again and again and again, but nevertheless beautiful, again, in my opinion. The plot. In general terms, it is being one of the, I mean, almost the most famous and known and recognizable ballets, talks of a prince who has come of age and must marry. And besides the personal decision that this is for him as a man, as a lover, as a human being, this is also a decision that carries weight in terms of the future of the kingdom. So he has to take on very serious role as a monarch. And that can explain some of the dilemmas that he may have in terms of choosing a bride, and these may come out in different ways in the different productions. So the first act, and sometimes it will be called the Act 1, Scene 1, and then Act 1, Scene 2 versus Act 1, 2, 3, and 4. But moving right along in general terms, we will have the festivities marking Siegfried, Prince Siegfried's birthday, coming of age. His mother will bestow on him a crossbow as a gift, and this crossbow is central because that's what leads him to Act 2 or Scene 2, where he goes out into the forest, either on his own or with a retinue of his fellow royals' entourage, and he will come across a flock of swans in the night, and a particular swan that appears to him as a woman. And then we learn, either because we read the program notes or because the mime scene in that part of the ballet is so clear that we understand that Odette, the woman transformed into a swan is indeed a mortal, a princess. A spell was cast over her, and she is doomed forever to be trapped in the body of a swan, unless the vow of love, a promise of love, of true love, will break that spell. There are a few themes that kind of repeat in different ballets of this period, whether they are in the framework of the ballet of having the scenes that are set in reality, such as Act 1 and Act 3 in Swan Lake, and the scenes that are perhaps not in reality, perhaps imaginary, but definitely they are populated by creatures that are not real and flesh and blood. And in this particular instance, that would be the white scenes by the lake. So it would be Act 2 and Act 4. In the pictures that we have before us, and I'll kind of intertwine this particular production with the rest of the plot as it develops. In this production by John Neumeier, he crosses over between what we know about Swan Lake and the fantasy and the tale and the myth, and he weaves into it an episode, a chapter out of European history, and a particular monarch, Ludwig II of Bavaria, and his particular life story and his dilemmas in his role as a monarch, in his ability/inability to marry, and the happenings, the biographical events in his life. And he found a very creative, evocative way of, every production will highlight a different element of the core basic outline of the story. Before introducing this version from 1987, which clearly stands out as being different, I'll continue with Act 2 of Siegfried by the Lake with Odette. So Siegfried falling in love with Odette, and by all means, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be with you forever and after. And then pause, and we come back to reality with Act 3, whereby there's a big ball at the palace. His mother, the queen, arranges for several quite suitable, adequate candidates to come before the prince, who he has to choose from. And there again, we will see differences such as 6 identical maidens. No wonder he can't choose a bride. They all look the same, versus a certain unique singularity about each one representing a different country. So in the Bolshoi Ballet's version with choreographed by Yuri Grigorovich, each of the princesses who would be a candidate for him to pick to marry represents a different country. And in that act, we also have another characteristic of ballets of this period in the form of national dances from different countries that add a kind of a bit of an exotic flavor to ballets of the Romantic period. So we saw something similar in the Nutcracker, where the ruse was the different suites from all over the world. And here it is the delegations from different countries. So whether they each have a princess of their own, or they just have come to pay their respects, whatever the version is, that's what happens in Act 3. Of course, festivities are interrupted by the appearance of what seems to be the spitting image of Odette. Oh, the wonderful, beautiful swan from the lakeside, which Siegfried dances with. And whether from the program notes or through the dancing, the staging, the mime, the choreography, we understand that the woman who appears before him, although well prepared and versed in how to move like Odette, she is indeed Odile, the daughter of the sorcerer who cast the spell on Odette to begin with, who is trying to put one over Siegfried, because he definitely does not want Siegfried to vow undying love to Odette and break the spell. So we bring in the imposter. So this would be my opportunity to come back to this alternative staging choreography production of Swan Lake by Swedish choreographer Mats Ek. And in the picture on the upper right-hand side, where we see a dancer in a white tutu and a dancer in a black tutu, this would be my opportunity to say that in order for the audience to believe that Odette and Odile, although very distinct different people, look the same, and therefore Odile can pass as Odette, ballet companies will, I mean, the only thing that one could possibly do, unless you're hiring twins, is to use the exact same ballerina to dance. We'll go with to dance the two roles. And that kind of highlights the element of the duality of the two characters, the two roles, the white and the black, perhaps the one being the good, the other being the evil. Even the colors, the white and black, and the expressions that we have in language about how those two are dichotomous. Speaking of tutus, okay, white and black, I understand there's an advert saying this is Swan Lake, and yet, as an avid ballet goer, I would say that, oh, no, something is terribly wrong in this picture. The white, black, or corps de ballet, or whoever, they have no hair. The head is covered to conceal the hair. They look bald, not very pretty in the 19th century convention of what pretty ladies are supposed to look like. And that raises the thought that perhaps we're not trying to evoke pretty, dainty, light, and some of those values that we associate with ballet. Add to that they're barefoot, they're not erect, they're not necessarily turned out. So the choreographic language, the movement language that Mats Ek is employing in this production is that of contemporary dance. The story revolves a little bit more around Prince Siegfried, and again, his inability and weakness as against the very powerful Queen Mother. We also have men and women cast in the role of the corps de ballet Swans, and there are a few other changes that I hope you will be curious enough to see and look at for yourselves, whether finding any reviews or watching clips. Back to the plot. So in Act 3, we had Siegfried dancing with Odile, and oh yes, this is the girl for me. Look, Mom, I'm going to marry her. And he swears in what we know in ballet mime. This would be the definitely stretched up. Yeah, swearing, undue love, undying love, not undue love, undying love. Mime is also a very famous element with it of 19th century ballet. We mentioned this a little bit when we talked about the Nutcracker. How there are certain things that are hard to convey with an arabesque, because an arabesque can be used to say many things. So we have mime to fill in some of the blanks. In Matthew Bourne's production from 1995, again, leaning more into contemporary dance, but nevertheless still interested and intrigued by that classic of a tale and a dance known as Swan Lake. Again, a prince whose affections to swans happen to be personified by male dancers, which begs the question about who the prince would like to have as his counterpart in love and in life. I do appreciate that in this production, Matthew Bourne does a little tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of a laughing about ballet, kind of making fun about ballet, because there is within a story of the prince having a candidate princess, etc., and they actually go to the ballet and watch a little bit of making fun of 19th century romantic ballets. So of course you have to know what that might be in order to appreciate it, which is, again, the instance in watching all of these productions and variations on the theme. The more you know about it and where they draw from, the more you can appreciate the little clever quotes and references that they will be making about previous productions. And I see that I'm off on my tangents here. How about I will promise that this is all going to be there for you on Google Classrooms with links. There's so many ways to say Swan Lake. I think because I have this tendency, and I caught myself more or less in time, I'll wrap this part up, but not before summarizing Act 4. So at the ball, Siegfried, undying love, to the wrong girl, thunder, lightning, cries from the lake. Oh no, but you have doomed me, says Odile, forever and ever. See, Act 4, Act 2, Scene 4, whichever it may be, back at the lakeside, Siegfried, Odette, and Rothbart, the evil sorcerer. And they have to make it good somehow. We all have to go home at the end. And even there's so many versions. There's like the sad, tragic ending. There's the happy ever after ending. And there's several variations in between. So while this is not a whodunit, I will leave it to you to see the end. Back to Cecilia and Destiny.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to pass it on to Hannah because she had a question about the storyline. And then we'll get into chatting with Destiny about what it's like to dance in this production. But Hannah, did you want to ask your question?
Was the storyline developed by the first choreographer? I'm not sure how to pronounce their name.
Julius Reisinger.
Or was that an existing fairy tale that Julius decided to turn into a ballet?
So one of the many books that will answer this mystery that will be contradicted by many other books. So it is actually, so there is the background of fairy tales and culture and folk culture of European countries. But you will find that swans were always portrayed as male figures in these stories, not female figures. But we're in the Romantic era, and it's the elusive female figure that we are idolizing on the stage at this point in time. So my understanding is that way back at the 1877 point, it was actually Tchaikovsky in writing the music, because music at that point in time was written for the particular action that's going to take place on stage. So it's not like you could write the music first and then decide what the story is. So actually Tchaikovsky would have been master of that part. And part of the complexity in Swan Lake is that by the time Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov did their version, Tchaikovsky was already deceased. So as opposed to, for example, the next ballet that he did with Petipa, Sleeping Beauty, where they were both alive at the same time in the same city, working on the same ballet, Petipa, it's beautiful for ballet geeks. There are the notebooks of Marius Petipa where he dictates to Tchaikovsky, the composer, I want 4 bars of this and 4 bars of that. This is the scene where this is going to happen. I want it slow, not fast. I want these instruments playing for it, etc., etc. It's fascinating. So that was the relationship between the music and the choreography. And of course, in everything all through the years, there are many people who are kind of adding and editing and rewriting, and also of different professions. So there will be also people, dramaturgs throwing their 2 cents in, etc. So go for the books. The Google is the best one. The Wikipedia, start there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And I want to bring in Destiny into this conversation because we're so happy to have her. So Destiny, why don't you start it off by telling us a little bit about is this your first time doing a production of Swan Lake, and what roles do you have, and what was the rehearsal process for you?
Hi everyone, I'm Destiny. So this is my first full-length ballet. I've never done something like Swan Lake before, so it's really exciting and scary at the same time. The rehearsal process and the roles that I do, I'm a swan in Act 2 and in the Act 4 dance and throughout the storm, which you're talking about the lightning and everything. So I'm in that part too. I also am a princess. I'm the Algerian princess. So I learned princesses. And then like in Act 1, there's like a court scene. So I'm doing like court, we call it court pop, but it's like court populace or something. But
yeah.
so, so those are the roles that I do. They're all really fun and exciting. I really like doing court pop because like I can smile and like kind of have like I'm having fun when I'm a swan, but we have to be more, you know, serious and you know, really kind of like in tune with like the storyline and what's going on with Odette. But yeah,
let's talk about faces for a second, because just so everyone knows, I'm also a swan and I have some other parts that we don't need to talk about, but like what's your face as a swan? Because I feel like I'm like grimacing a lot of the time. Like, what is that experience for you?
I don't know. I like make up a story like in my head of like what we're, because for Act 2, I kind of wasn't sure because it's not very clear. We know for Act 4 and the dance, we're supposed to be sad because it's when we find out that we won't be women, like the curse, it's not going to be broken. So we're kind of stuck the way we are. So we're like really sad. But for Act 2, I don't know. I think it's like hopeful because like, you know, Siegfried's there. So I guess it's like their first meeting. So, oh my gosh, there's a chance. So I kind of am like, I'm not like, but like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't I don't yes, it's like hopeful face. That's
yeah. And how long have you been rehearsing for this? I'm not sure whether you rehearsed longer than we did or just maybe same period, but just maybe added rehearsals. Like how long did you have to rehearse all your parts?
Oh, I don't really remember. I just know that we started probably like maybe a week before the company did, which I don't know if you know.
So that was 3 weeks before our opening. Yeah. So it's a pretty fast turnaround. So typically, I don't know, for like a school production, you would have like 6 months to prepare for your big show at the end of the year. But when you're in a company production, it's kind of like, okay, you have 3 weeks, let's learn it. And we're getting on stage. So you have to be a really, really fast learner. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about like the Swan production, the Swan rehearsals. So there are 24 swans. And what was that process like for you? And how is it different than maybe other rehearsals that you've been in?
I just remember at the beginning, when we first started, our rehearsal director, Anne Dabrowski, she would like kind of just teach us little snippets, like little tiny parts, little sections, just to see like kind of who can do what. And so that's kind of how we started off, just like not like learning it right off the bat, like, cause that's a lot to do. But just kind of like getting us in I know we worked on our arms a lot because there's a lot of up and down and like and Swan, like, so we had to really, yes. So we had to really focus on that. So I remember doing that a lot. And then the PDs, so that's the group I'm in, the professional division. We started rehearsing before, like with ourselves, like without the company, so we can kind of know what we're doing before we get thrown in with them, because a lot of the company members have performed this before. I think the last time you guys did Swan, like, was it 2018?
We did it 4 years ago. Yeah. So I was in the company. I'd been in the company for like 3 or 4 years. So I had done a different core spot than I'm doing this time, which is fun and interesting, but yeah, very familiar. Yeah.
And that's another thing about like the different core spots, because there's 24 of us, and like the PDs, I feel like we are in the ballet and we're very much so a part of the corps de ballet, but another part that another kind of task we have to take on is like learning different spots. Like we can't just know our own spot, and that comes with different challenges, because you could be doing one spot one day and then have to learn someone else all the way across the stage. So but that's just another challenge that we have to do. And just kind of honestly, I feel like we're not like understudies, but I feel like we just have to be there, like, you know, for company members, just in case, because it's hard. It's not easy. It's not it's very challenging. And was telling us that all throughout rehearsals, like, you know, it's hard, and you can't do Swan Lake. Like you have to really focus on what you're doing and just be prepared. So I just remember hearing that all throughout rehearsals. But it's really exciting when it kind of comes together, because when we started off just as PDs, like doing it by ourselves, it was still fun, but like being with the company and feeling their energy and being in Studio C and doing run-throughs is just so different. So it was nice to kind of be with everybody and feel that support.
Yeah, I love that. I want to open up questions to any of our teachers that are joining us. If you have any questions about Swan Lake or for Destiny, or about like what it's like to be in a group setting. And if no one has questions, then I'm sure Leora has 1,000. Yeah, Hannah,
I
go
see
for
a
it.
thumbs up. I don't know if that means that that was a question or just a thumbs up.
I have a couple of questions about the rehearsal process. First, as you're learning it, do you just get as much choreography thrown at you as possible, or do you learn some and, I mean, not like completely polish it, but finesse it a little bit before moving on to the next section? And then I'll ask my other question after you answer that.
Yeah, of course. So I think, well, what we started with first was Act 2. And we kind of like do it in sections, I feel like. So I guess to make it make sense, there's these things called the washes, and so we kind of go like this, and there's like different ones. Yeah. There's like about, I think, like 3 different like sets, and so we worked on that for like just like an hour and a half rehearsal, honestly, like just doing the washes. And then our next rehearsal, maybe she'd be like, okay, let's put you guys in an order, and then we'd work on like how we got to the line. So it was kind of it's really tedious in the beginning, but like I said, once it all comes together, it comes together. But yeah, so we do like that, and then we put it all together and we do a section, and then Anne would be like, okay, so next rehearsal, I'm gonna keep going with Act 2, but I'm gonna maybe put this person in instead of this person. And so it was just a lot of that back and forth. And then we just kind of like move throughout the ballet pretty slowly. I know that we didn't start Act 4 for a while, it felt like, which I was like nervous about. We learned the Act 4 dance because—
Didn't you learn it with us?
Yes, yeah, because there's only 16 swans in that part. So we learned the Act 4 dance with you guys. And then more swans run in later. So that was something else that all the other PDs had to learn too. So yeah, it's just section by section, if that makes sense. I hope that helped.
Thank you, that did help. And then another question is, as a PD, is there a lot of back and forth? Do you say like, I don't quite understand what you're asking for, and exactly how do you want the arms positioned? Or do you just observe very intently and absorb the information that's told to you verbally?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both, because I feel like when we have our PD rehearsals, a lot of us feel more comfortable asking questions because it's just us and we're all new to this. But I know when we get with the company, we all get pretty quiet because we just like don't want to. I know that they like, CC, people in the company wouldn't mind if we ask questions, but like it is a rehearsal period, and a lot of them kind of just want to get it done, which I completely understand. So like, I do think that we do ask the more specific, like detailed questions when we're by ourselves with Anne, rather than when we're with the company. And yeah.
Yeah, I think what was also really interesting for me in this process, because this is my second time doing this production, like I'm doing a slightly different spot, but generally, as Destiny was saying, it's like generally the same choreography. You're just maybe doing the right side instead of the left side or something. Is I had actually missed a lot of the rehearsal process for Act 2 Swans because I was learning Odette O'Deal and was like in those rehearsals and was dismissed from the core, which was like kind of annoying because I came into the core and she was like, go in. And I was like, I don't know the steps, but actually I just had to watch it once. And I was like, yep, I remember it. And so all the details of like what Destiny was saying, like the washes and how she spent like 2 hours doing that rehearsal, like I already had that in my muscle memory. Like maybe I needed a little reminder of like where to look or something. But for the most part, if you have that really intense rehearsal process when you're learning Swan Lake for the first time, it's in your body forever and ever. So when Destiny does it again in 4 years, when this production comes back, she won't need those long rehearsals because she already knows exactly like where the head needs to be for all of these very specific swan type movements. But yeah, it's been really interesting revisiting the production for me and experiencing like how I can just like switch Swan on and switch Swan off, which is just really weird.
I wonder if I could share a little video. I noticed that PNB posted something from one of these recent performances, not archival. So maybe either of you could offer your insights.
Awesome. I was actually going to share Four Little Swans, but we should do yours and then we can do Four Little Swans because Destiny's doing it next weekend, which is so exciting. But
fantastic.
Leora, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So here I am. And
hopefully the audio will work because it hasn't.
Yes.
But
and I guess the sharing screen would be helpful too. So here we go. Well, that was short.
I loved watching that video. It makes me really happy that our lines are really good. We spend so much time. So as Destiny was saying, she spent so much rehearsal time on like, how do you do specific heads? Because everything is so stylized. There are 24 gorgeous women on stage and they all need to look very similar because you're making this like motif of like swans on a lake, and not that all swans look the same when you go to a lake, but that's kind of a more visually appealing. And so everyone needs to have the same head tilt and movement and precise footwork and stuff. So not only are you working on like what your body looks like, but then you physically need to be in the right space on the stage. So in a line or in a diagonal or in a curve, and you need to know exactly where, like you have a map in your head of what the stage is and where the different marks are: center, quarter, eighth marks, first swing, second, fourth. I mean, they're just like, you make this grid of the stage to figure out exactly where you need to be. Sometimes that doesn't even work because the line slightly shifted because someone didn't run as far. And so just having that attention to detail as well. So Destiny, do you have any additional thoughts on what it was like to rehearse like that or perform like that? And how do you deal with that stress of like not only looking a certain way, but needing to be in a certain place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about this and talking about this with like my fellow PDs the other day, just like after seeing that video. We were so proud of ourselves because like it's just like we do work a lot on lines, but like we don't see it, especially if you're not like, you know, you're not leading the line, you're like in the back or like just wherever you are in the line. We don't see like what it actually looks like and how beautiful it is. And I was telling some of my friends, I was like, I kind of wish I had a show off or something so I could go sit up at the top and just watch, because like I just want to see how pretty like the patterns are. I feel like those are the best seats in the house, honestly, because like you can see that like the patterns that we make. I think it's just so it's so beautiful. But yeah, I don't know, I think I'm just really thankful for Anne because I feel like she really helped us a lot with those lines. And I didn't, some rehearsals I was like, Anne, oh my gosh, come on, I'm in line. But it was really nice. Like I know that she like really cares and wants it to look beautiful, and it did. And I think that's why we have those kind of tedious rehearsals, so we can really have that beautiful product.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting is I had a lot of friends come to this weekend shows and I was like, what was your favorite part? I always ask this question because it's so interesting to me, like who likes what sections? And I was expecting like, oh, the 32 fouettes, which we can talk about as like continuous turns on one leg that the Odile, the Black Swan, does in Act 3, which is like super hard, like you've been dancing for 3 hours and then you do this like really intense turn sequence anyway, or like there's just so many other exciting moments. But every single person was like, I love all of the White Swan group sections. And I was like, okay, good job. So it's like not like, and we've heard this in rehearsals too, is like the corps de ballet is the star of the show. And at least to me, I'm like, oh, you're just trying to make me feel better that I'm just working really hard and killing myself to just like stand on the side. But honestly, like Mason, when all of my friends who were audience members said, like, I believe them, because it's, you don't see 24 dancers all looking the same, making these beautiful formations very often. It's very often like, here's the solo work, or here's a pas de deux, or here's some, you know, crazy lift thing. And it's not often you see this like incredible group of women doing incredible things together. I think that's very unique to Swan Lake. But any other questions from our beautiful teachers that have joined us? Hannah, go for it.
Destiny, do you have any techniques for remembering choreography? Like, do you write things down in a notebook, or do you watch a recording of the performance from several years ago after rehearsals to kind of cement things in your head?
Well, I think for me, I'm like a visual learner, so I really like watching. I know, so I'm gonna perform Four Little Swans, and I didn't find that out until like we had like one rehearsal, and then the next rehearsal we had to do it in front of like Kent and Francia and Peter and everybody. So that was kind of stressful, but I don't know, for some reason, I was watching Four Swans like earlier, like in the rehearsal process. And I was like, I'm just gonna like, I'm gonna learn this like mentally, like I'm not gonna like, you know, do it, but I'm just gonna watch and kind of see if I can kind of pick it up. So that's kind of what I do. I do like to go over things a lot though, but not too much, because sometimes I start to overthink, especially with something like Four Little Swans. Just because like if you kind of like keep going over and you're gonna start questioning things like, wait, does the head go this way, when, and sometimes it's just breathe and it's just simple and you just need to just go back to basics. And so that's what I do. I like to watch videos. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a lot of the videos that they send us, because we get like videos to watch of like previous Swan Lake things. So that's what I do when I feel like underprepared, but I didn't really feel that way, just because Anne really prepared us very well, I felt like. But like with Act 4, like I said, we learned that like I feel like pretty late, so I was scared about it a little, so I watched videos a lot to just make sure I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, so on that note, I actually want us to watch Four Little Swans, and I don't know if the audio is gonna go, but we can just talk. Actually, tell me if the audio works. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay. So while this is playing in my ear, we can just watch it and talk about it. So Destiny, talk us through Four Little Swans. When is this in Act 2, and how is it to dance?
Yeah, so Act 2 is where we stand in B+ a lot, and so our feet are cramping a lot. And so we kind of finish Act 2 out, and then we turn, and while some of the dancers walk away, the Four Little Swans walk into the corner, and then they start this step right after Act 2. So it's kind of nice because you get to kind of move your feet a lot, clearly, and kind of work out that cramp that you have in your arch. But yeah, it's really specific. So I don't know if you guys know, but so this is Lita in this blue leotard at the end with the headband. So that's who I am. And in this part, you have to pull. So that's like the kind of difficult part about holding hands with each other, is that you have to kind of stay in line, but work with each other, moving across the stage. So in that specific part, like somebody has to pull really far to the left, or then when you do the pas de chas, which I think will come up, but yeah, so you have to like pull really far to the right and just kind of work together. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful, because there's nothing else like this. I feel like, you know, four women holding hands, so together. So yeah, I just think it's really pretty. It's so beautiful.
And you can see, I'm going to go back a little bit, but like all these head movements, like if one person does something wrong, or like incorrectly, or slightly late or slightly early, it just kind of A, ruins the effect, but B, like can throw everyone else off. I feel like I've never done this dance because I'm 5'10" and I'm too tall. I do the 3 tall swans, which is after this. So luckily I will never get to do this super stressful dance that looks like it is a killer. But just everything has to be so exacting, especially this part that Destiny was talking about. Like everyone needs to travel the same amount. You have to be in the same diagonal position, and all of that. So just so you all know, this will be available for you to learn or teach to your students. So we have a tutorial on Four Little Swans, and then this rehearsal footage, and then a professional one from a performance. So you can see kind of how do you do it, what's a rehearsal process look like, and then the performance quality. So hopefully your students will enjoy doing that. And they're pretty simple steps. It's like passe, coupe, entrechicot, which is maybe a little bit challenging, and then chasses, but that's basically it, but in a short, really fast period. So it's definitely not an easy dance by any means. Any other questions before we wrap up? Danielle.
Hi, Cici.
Oh, hi, Clara. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How you doing?
I'm good.
Well, mine's not a question, but I'm so glad I joined today. Thank you so much, Destiny, because my company is working on a production, and I took so much from what both of you shared, knowing I'm directing the dance, so I can be able to help my students from the information I got from Destiny and you. Now I can understand their points and where they're standing, and to make their dance flawless and easy. So thank you so much. Like, this came the perfect time for me. So I'm gonna put in all the tips when I get back to rehearsals with them tomorrow. Thank you so much, Cecilia. You're just amazing. And I love you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Clara. Oh, Zafir, do you want to unmute? Or do you want me to ask your question? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask. So she asked in the chat, you mentioned height. I never knew that there were criteria for Four Little Swans. What other criteria are there? Destiny, do you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think, I mean, I might not be the best person to answer this. I think I'm like 5'4", 5'5". We'll say 5'5". I'm on the shorter side. And so I think like for Four Little, I think that's just what so I don't know why. Is it because is it just because like people are assuming that shorter dancers
I think typically shorter dancers move faster, but also I will say we learned Four Little Swans in school, like, so for me, like 15 years ago, and like the length of leg and like the proximity of how close you need to be just like doesn't really work. There's just like a lot more banging around because there's a lot more leg. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't rehearse it and make it work. But I think it's just so ingrained in everyone's mind that Four Little Swans are the four shortest dancers in the corps de ballet. And then as Leora was mentioning earlier in this chat, there are just so many different versions in Swan Lake. In this particular one by Ken Stoll, there are 3 big swans. And so they're the tallest swans. So I'm luckily one of those and I get to do it. It's a lot of jumping. So the Four Little Swans, as you saw in the video, is like all this very intricate footwork, where you're just showing the precision, and then 3 big swans is just like release of energy and jumping and taking up all of the space. So very different qualities done by short dancers and tall dancers, but that doesn't mean that nowadays we couldn't switch it. I'd love to see short dancers jump around. They probably would jump tall higher than me, but and then also the main swan, we have 4 different casts that are performing it. Odette O'Deal character can be any height, just as long as they have a partner to match them. So we have 2 shorter casts and 2 like medium tall casts. So height, and then height for corps de ballet, I feel like is a huge range. So you have the 4 little swans, so the 3 big swans, but the formations are carefully thought of so that there are the tall people close to each other and the short people close to each other. So it's a nice, you never notice like tall person and short person, maybe few instances where just like a running pattern makes people end up next to each other. But for the most part, all of the patterns are created so that the similar height people are next to each other. So it's never distracting of like, oh, there's a weird height dilemma, but definitely not all of us are the same height, because Destiny's in the corner. She said she's 5'5" and I'm 5'10". So we look very different next to each other, but we're still on stage as a corps de ballet together. So that's a really great question, Zafar. But to close off, I know we've been chatting for a while, but since our audience is familiar with the Nutcracker and we talked about it before, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the difference of being in the corps de ballet and the Nutcracker versus being the corps de ballet in Swan Lake. And I know we touched on this a little bit before, but just kind of integrating the two full-length pieces, and how is it different to dance in both of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think for me, Nutcracker was a lot, I felt more like expressive, and I felt that I could kind of show different sides to my dancing, if that makes sense. So I did snow and I did flowers and marzipan, so just different roles like that. So I felt like I could kind of be different characters, if that makes sense, and have different personalities with those roles. So snow was like, very jumpy and exciting and fast and kind of all over the place, but like fun at the same time. And then flowers was very waltzy, and just the music is so beautiful and bendy. And so I think that's like what I really enjoyed about Nutcracker, and being in the corps in Nutcracker. And then Swan Lake, it's still fun. I don't want you guys to think it's fun. I promise you it's fun. But it's just more serious. And I think just for me, just the type of dancer I am, I feel like I focus a lot more on it, and I'm more like, okay, Destiny, like pull yourself together, let's do this, and kind of trying to just pay attention, because like the formations, like you guys saw the video, it's just very specific, and if you mess up or if you're out of place, it's just very obvious. So and we were talking about this, but like the costumes are more revealing in Swan Lake than they are like in Nutcracker. Like in Flowers, we have those like long orange and like pink and just beautiful like long tutus, but then Swan Lake, it's like pancake tutu, and so your legs, everything is shown. So you just have to make sure that kind of everything is in the right place. And I feel like, not saying that Nutcracker wasn't, but I just feel like there's more room for that in Nutcracker rather than in Swan Lake.
Yeah, such interesting. Oh yeah, Leora, go for it.
Oh no, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that Tchaikovsky was also the composer for Nutcracker. So we have Nutcracker. I'm sorry, we'll start with Swan Lake, and then The Sleeping Beauty, and then Nutcracker. Tchaikovsky's 3 ballets. That's my interjection.
Awesome. Well, if there are no other questions, I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and thank you, Destiny, so much for joining us, and loved having all of you here. I hope you learned something and are able to take something for your productions or for your students, but please do check out the Google Classrooms. I'll share that in the WhatsApp group and then on all the social media email platforms, so you have access to the 4 Little Swans. Please teach it to your kids. They will love it. I remember really liking, even though I hit everyone with my long legs, but yeah, Leora, do you want to close us off?
So I'm still going to harp on the 3 Tchaikovsky ballets. I looked up the repertoire of Pacific Northwest Ballet. Unfortunately, I'll say this with sadness, Sleeping Beauty was performed last in the 2018-2019 season. So we will just have to wait until Sleeping Beauty comes around again. Now that we've done Swan Lake and Nutcracker, it's all that remains.
Well, fun fact, it was the last production that we performed before COVID shut theaters down. It was the last thing I performed. So yeah, usually full-length ballets and companies the size of Pacific Northwest Ballet come back every 4 years. So there's a natural, besides Nutcracker, we do it every year. That's the exception, but everything else just kind of comes in a four-year flow. So hopefully soon. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Destiny, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. And of course, if you have any questions after this conversation, share them in the WhatsApp group. And if there's something specific for Destiny, I will definitely have her answer for you. But thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week and see you with the next one. Bye, you guys.
Okay,
Thank you, Cece.
Morning.
Thank you.